Hi there Kit fans, it's Louise with you today on behalf of Kitaholic Kits, and I'm sharing my first layout for the September 2022 kits. This can often be a little bit of a challenge for me being the first of the month. There's so much to take in, so many pretties, it's really hard to sometimes narrow it down into what I actually want to create with versus what I want to save. So I decided that I'm going to play with the mixed media elements, and this is a really technical tool that I'm using here. It's a cutout piece of scrap cardboard, and what I want to do is draw these messy rectangles. So I don't want these to be perfect. I actually want them to be a little bit obscure. They are going to be filled with the shimmer paints. So I'm going to use the shimmer paints kind of like a watercolor, but first I'm going to go ahead and put those rectangles all into my background. Now, there's 4 colours, and I did initially think about maybe just leaving that custard colour out because it doesn't sort of vibe with the brightness. But as I start to add some colour, they are quite vibrant, and I think the custard really does bring it down a little bit so that it's not too overpowering and in your face. So this is a really simple technique. I'm just taking a really small amount of the actual paint, and I'm using it with a very wet paint brush. So kind of like a watercolor, and in this case I don't mind if some of it goes out of the lines. I don't mind if some of it's different tones and colors, almost like an ombre kind of effect where it's darker at the top, sort of lighter at the bottom. But definitely really love the way this background is looking, and you can see that red really adds that vibrancy. And even though I'm going to cover some of this up with my photo and embellishing, I really like this background. I think it's a great background. Now, I had quite a bit of the paint still out on my craft mat, and I don't like to waste, particularly when I've got little journals and art journals and little books lying around. So I'm actually going to go and show you what I do when I've got leftover paint. So in this case, I'm using one colour, again with the ombre kind of effect, darker at the top, progressing down to lighter. Couldn't really get the middle section to blend perfectly, but doesn't really matter because again, I'm probably going to cover it up with something. It's purely just to have color on the page. Same with this little journal. This is one that was actually a gift, so it's a handmade little journal. So I decided to add a little bit of that custard color into the journal. Then we've got a little traveler's notebook, which again I'm going to put some color into. A very old technique from back in the school art days, probably something everybody's done, smudging pages together and seeing what kind of patterns emerge. So really like that fun technique. Lots of splattering, lots of mess. No, nothing hard about what I'm doing here, purely just using up color. Alrighty, so my layout has actually dried in the majority of time that I've spent using up the rest of that colour and cleaning things up. I'm going to go ahead and have a little bit of a play around. I was very lucky that I had picked a photo from my stash of Master Z eating fairy floss. So I actually think that this is the perfect photo for this particular kit because we've got this great title, The Sweet Life, which is what I'm going to use. And then we've got lots of food or sweet embellishments that we can use as well. Now, I love a doily in a background. I think it's a really great way to break up layers, particularly as we generally use square photos. And in this case, I've got that rectangular background. So the roundness of the doily just helps to bring all this together. Now I'm working on a mat, and I cut up this piece of paper, and I actually cut one side of it down into a 9x12 so that I can use it in a A4 layout later on. So I use what's left of that to actually add that background. And I love that pop of the black. It really, I think, ties in well with the black rectangles that I've going on. You know, the Sweet Life title's got that bit of darkness to it. So here all I'm doing is having a bit of a play around with those layers, and because I'm liking this background so much, I don't want to put too much on to cover it. So I'm purely just adding a couple of little florals. You know, the title speaks for itself. I want to pop a little bit of journaling in there, and then I'm going to add some of the little enamel dots as well, just to give it that little bit of a pop into the background. So finishing off here are the embellishments on the rectangles. We've got the actual main cluster and some journaling, but this really is one of my fave layouts this month. I love the background. I hope you're inspired to have a go at it. And please, if you do, make sure you share it on Facebook so that we can actually see the results, because we do love to see if you've taken inspiration from one of our creations. So that's my first project for the month. I hope that you enjoyed the video there. Please, if you haven't already, make sure that you hit that little subscribe button.